everyone, it's Words About Books. I'm trying not to shout too much because my daughter will not go to bed. And I don't want to wake her back up or agitate her and keep her awake. So I'm Nate, you're Ben, and we're talking about American Gods, a non-controversial book about a very controversial author. How's it going, man? Why are we doing this, Ben? Who came up with such an ingenious plan?
Let's do a quick about the author. Neil Gaiman was born on November 10th, 1960 in Portchester, Hampshire, which is a place in Britain. His family is of Polish-Jewish origin. His parents studied Dianetics at the Scientology Center.
Oh, dear. I forgot about this.
His sister still works for the Scientologists. He is a very special boy. He became a writer. He's very smart. He reads quite well. He had a career. There's some journalism. There's some comic books. He wrote Sandman. It's a great comic. We talked about it on this podcast. He wrote a bunch of other stuff. Good Omens, one of my favorite books. He wrote American Gods. Yeah, one of my favorite books. He's a really good author. He also had some recent allegations. And I suppose that may be why we're here. I think why we're here is I made a post on Threads, and I'll just read it for you. This is the post I wrote. I listened to the 4-hour podcast on Neil Gaiman. This is absolutely wild. And I have to say, for the people waiting for more information, I double-checked his side of the story with other outlets. It's not good. No version of this is good. It's bad. We didn't know Neil Gaiman. Now, a lot of people responded to that comment saying that you're an idiot for thinking you know anyone, or that there were always signs about Neil Gaiman. I always knew because he used other people's cultures in American Gods. Or, I can't imagine ever thinking I know any celebrity or anything about them. Well, here's the thing. To all those people, I don't literally think I knew Neil Gaiman, first off.
You're not saying that you met Neil Gaiman and you've been to his house a few times and that you're buds.
Yeah, I've never been in the same room as Neil Gaiman. And, hey, that turned out to be a plus in the long run. I'm aware I didn't know Neil Gaiman. I'm speaking mostly of how he presents himself to the public. He's somebody who I would say I agree with about a lot of things and disagree with about some specific things. And, he championed a lot of the political causes I would champion. He's been a defender of the LGBT community. He's had a lot of things about writing over the years that he's said that I agree with, and I've actually honestly taken some of advice to heart. He's part of the reason I started writing with fountain pens. Like I did enjoy the things this guy said. I did enjoy the things he wrote. And so it's hard, when you've got somebody who professionally, let's say, you respected, and then you find out that they were doing something that you really don't respect. That's what I meant by I didn't know him. I'm aware I don't know anybody, and I can't trust anything.
There is no objective reality. Everything is subjective.
Yeah. The 4-hour podcast, to which I refer to, if you want to check it out, is by the Slow Newscast. And the title of the episode is, it's actually a 5-part series called Master: The Allegations Against Neil Gaiman. It is a long, pretty thorough, as far as I can tell, diving into allegations made that Neil Gaiman committed sexual assault. As you listen to the podcast, I think there is a lot to this story. I'm not going to go into it. Listen to that podcast. I'm not a journalist. That's not what we're here for. But what I can tell you is, there's a dispute over whether or not a crime was committed. Neil Gaiman alleges He did not commit a crime. Somebody alleges he did commit a crime. But the one thing they both agree on is that she was his
Mm-hmm.
babysitter. She was
Mm-hmm.
21, I think 20 at the time. He was 60, and they did engage in a BDSM sexual relationship that she says not super comfortable with. He says he had every indication she was comfortable with. But again, Neil, you did sort of walk into a risky situation there. She's 40 years younger than you, which is
This one of the alleged incidents was like the baby wasn't even there, and and the
uh,
babysitter.
no, the first,
You
yeah, it starts where
what?
like she's hired as a nanny. She shows up, the kid's not there. The kid's at a friend's birthday or something. He's going to be there all day. And so Neil Gaiman's like, why don't you get in the hot tub? It's a no clothes hot tub. And it's like, oh, geez. Here we go. Uh, so yeah, she's 40 years younger. She's your employee. It's not smart.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a power dynamic there that you don't want to be involved in. You know?
yeah, it's like I can't tell you if you broke the law per se, but I can say that I think this was probably immoral and
Yeah,
stupid.
at the very least, it's bad optics. At bare minimum, bare minimum, doesn't look good for you. It looks real bad.
Well, I should mention Neil Gaiman's married. He's in an open marriage, um, and it seems to be a pattern of behavior. You know, there's more than one woman alleging this, and there's more than one woman alleging criminal conduct, and there's plenty of other women who would show up to say that yes, I too had a vast age different relationship with Neil Gaiman, though I don't have any regrets or negative experiences. So that was interesting, and it was the first one in a long time that really got to me. And again, it's like I don't, you know, you've presumably listened to words about books. You know, I don't idolize very many authors, but this one, yeah, I really liked his work. Sandman is I would consider it one of the greatest graphic novels of all time, and Good Omens is an amazing book. You know, he co-authored that with Terry Pratchett. Um, American Gods is good. I haven't read any of his children's books. Not going to.
Oh my god, there are children's books?
Oh, several. He wrote Coraline.
Oh, he wrote Coraline?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no desire to see that one or read it. It just looks freaky as fuck. I didn't realize that was him, but I saw that and was like,
So yeah. And you, Nate, are a ghoul.
I believe it's pronounced Bagul.
A deity? What kind of deity?
A very obscure one dating back to Babylonian times, named Bagul.
And I don't know where you're like, how you're gonna come at me like that? Very disrespectful, Ben.
We're not here today because of me. I mean, we're kind of here today because of me.
You did pick American Gods when I said Neil Gaiman.
No, you said okay. You
I said
I
Neil
had.
Gaiman, and you were like American Gods, and that's
I
why
don't
we're here.
regret American Gods. The book is fine. That you know that's not what I'm talking about. The part I'm talking about is I made this post. By the way, my most successful Threads post ever.
And we're gonna get that sweet Threads cred all the way to our podcast, and it's gonna lift our podcast up on its shoulders and carry it away in a celebratory parade,
I was
Ben.
saying it's July 2024 was our most successful month ever. Before that, June 2024 was also our most successful month ever. So we're just doing good, I guess.
We're
But
gonna be busting through the next glass ceiling using the power of Neil Gaiman controversy and Threads cred.
yeah. Also, this is hilarious, and I 100% guarantee this guy knows nothing about this. Jackson Crawford the Old Norse guy whose stuff I always talk about whenever we cover the Eddas or anything.
Yeah. Lives in Wyoming, doesn't like people. Yeah.
Yeah. He just released a video on Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology, and he's like, I hate it. And then there's a pinned comment underneath it that says, I was not aware of any of this. He's like, this is not a comment on his recent scandal. I don't know anything about him. Jackson Crawford has met him because Jackson Crawford worked on the American Gods TV show. He taught Odin how to speak Old Norse.
So he really did know him, but he didn't. Ooh.
So we're here because you found out that I like Neil Gaiman a lot. Second, that he absolutely disappointed me. And third, that it was a trending topic. And you were like, so you're covering Neil Gaiman, right? And I decided if you were going to make me read a whole book so you would have a loose excuse to talk about this scandal.
I wasn't going to talk about the scandal. I was going to have you talk about it. I don't.
Yeah, because you didn't.
I don't know what's going on.
This was a podcast. You didn't have to read. You could have just listened.
Are we talking about the election this year too? God, I don't want to talk about the election this year.
I don't want to talk about the election.
Remember when we did that first season and it was just miserable?
But no, we could. I mean, I'm not going to read Trump books again. I don't know if there's enough books out about Kamala Harris for me to
Maybe we
dive
can
into.
read a Biden book. Is it okay to make fun of him still?
Yeah, no, he's a hero.
He's a hero. He valiantly and bravely retired, as all people his age and around.
Like
his
I
age
say,
should do.
I one day dream of being like applauded for just leaving. It's a mess. Everything sucks. So, Neil Gaiman, American Gods. So we're doing this. We're doing this because of you, because you're a muckraker, because you like a scandal. But I did think it might be interesting. I thought there might be an interesting angle to all of this because I don't post things like that on social media a lot, and I only posted it because I was genuinely disappointed. And I wondered, there's all these people in the comments saying, A, you can't know anybody, so you're an idiot for even saying that.
Agreed. You're an idiot. How could you?
On the other hand, there was a bunch of people saying,
defending him.
Obviously, you should have known that. There was, interestingly, nobody defending him.
Okay. So, there's nobody that was like, well, innocent until proven guilty.
I agree with that to an extent. I mean, I don't necessarily know that he's guilty of a crime, and I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is just the relationship that he admits to, that he agrees happened, while maybe not rising to the level of illegality, is inappropriate. And it's not something I thought he would do. And he's obviously on a different moral wavelength than I am. And to be quite frank, I think he knows better. Or from my reading of his writing, he seems to know that's wrong. And he does it anyway, out of some compulsion or weakness. I don't know. And so there's all these people saying, like, the signs were always there. Have you read his work? How did you not notice all these red flags? And I was like, I don't know, man. I mean, I guess like he's just one of the most popular authors on the planet. And there were so many red flags and we all just didn't notice it. So I was like, well, there's a rule we have on there's a rule we have on Words About Books, though. It's like never reread a book you liked. Unless it's The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, that's actually turned out pretty decently so far.
I went along with this attention grabbing move of yours because I thought it might be interesting to take another look at American Gods, a book I remember quite liking, and seeing if I saw it, if I see the signs, or if knowing what I know now changes my opinion. There's another book we've been avoiding reading like the plague, which is Harry Potter.
Oh, actually, I was thinking maybe we could do that for a bonus episode, Your face.
Maybe. Yeah. You just made us read O.J. Simpson. And like
I'll
admit,
let you pick the next two unless we start coming up on a deadline. So you have until, let's see, we need to release the next one by like September-ish, October-ish. So you've got the next month and a half to come up with a replacement for Harry Potter, Ben. Or we're doing
Helter Skelter.
The Beatles song, right? That's
No. I've actually read Helter Skelter. It's an interesting book. We could do that. Interestingly, it's going to be way less offensive than the O.J. Simpson book. I mentioned J.K. Rowling because that is another author who I would say has disappointed me. Though I wasn't as attached to her writing, I thought Harry Potter was okay. And I'm sure, I'm positive, a reread of Harry Potter will hit different now that I know what I know about her. And we've also read Lovecraft. And I would say that I still enjoy the
ew.
Lovecraft stories, though I know he's a bad writer,
Why?
because of the ideas he brought. But the thing
Yeah,
is,
you go to another author who took those ideas and made them not about how your landlord, who is nothing but nice to you, is a piece of shit.
I thought that's what I was doing with Neil Gaiman. Nate. But the thing with Lovecraft I thought about, and I mentioned it when we were talking about Lovecraft, is the philosophical argument of death of the author. It's a lot easier when the author's dead. Like H.P. Lovecraft will not benefit from my purchasing his book. You know, that H.P. Lovecraft cannot, he is dead. He cannot financially benefit from my purchasing his works. J.K. Rowling can. And she's going to take that money and she's going to use it to fund causes that hurt people I care about. Now, Neil Gaiman's not going to do that. He's not going to use it to like fund a political agenda, but he has used his wealth and power to, I would say, manipulate women, young women in particular. And so that's a real conundrum for me. Like, what do I do? Like, I'll tell you the truth. I own 2 copies of American Gods. I own it in paperback and hardback. Like, I liked it enough that I got it in hardback. So, yeah, I wanted to see where this would take me. Now, this is going to be a longer series. American Gods is a longer book. I devoted quite a bit of time to the scandal because that's what Nate wants. But the rest of this is going to be about American Gods, but I'm going to keep an eye on it as we go through, like, do I see red flags? How has my reading changed now that I know what I know? And I think that might be an interesting exercise because the people who responded to me do have a point about one thing, and that is everybody you know is some kind of asshole, and you don't know the authors you read, and any one of them could disappoint me. Sarah J. Maas could kick a puppy tomorrow. I don't know. Anything could happen. So I say let's get started with American Gods. Probably going to be a 3-parter. We're going to be covering, I think.
Oh, a 3-parter.
Well, we'll see how much you can get done. It may be a 2-parter, maybe a 3-parter. We'll see if it stretches. But I think we're covering part 1 of the book today.
Yes, we'll cover part 1. I think part 2 is only like part 3, sorry. Part 3 is like 2 chapters. I figured we'd just roll. Oh no, I'm dumb, Ben. Part 4 is 2 chapters.
Yep.
Okay. Well, shit. This might run a little longer. I'm thinking there might not be a whole lot of spooky stuff in October this year, Ben, but we'll even it out because there won't be like any Christmas stuff. So, fair trade.
We'll figure it out. We'll still do spooky stuff in October, even if I have to do extra.
All right, but it probably won't be like the whole month, which I guess is fine. You're getting kind of tired at the end of the last go.
I hesitate to give up any time.
All right.
I'll take something that isn't scary and I'll make it scary.
Okay. No, that's a good challenge. You should do that.
So, American Gods.
All
part
right.
1.
This is the story of our dear friend Shadow. Shadow, I know that a last name was given at some point, but I don't remember it. Moon? Moon? It's Moon. I'm going with Moon.
You could just call him Shadow. His last name doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at all because they barely ever use it. So Shadow is in jail, Ben. He was a bad boy. He committed a crime. He's been there for 3 years, but he's going to be released on Saturday or whatever day that is, Ben. He's got 3 days until release. So I'm gonna say that I'm pretty sure this was a pre 9/11 world, Ben, and also
It was definitely written in a pre 9/11
there you
world. It might
go,
have been published after 9/11. I can't remember. It came out in 2001.
June 19th, 2001,
It was a pre 9/11 world.
pre 9/11 world. So this is where we were really soft on crime. You could just be released a few days early because your wife died in a tragic accident. Spoiler alert, by the way, that's what happened. He's looking forward to seeing his wife, and then the warden. He goes into the warden's office. The warden's like, "I'm sorry, but your wife is dead." Anyway, bye. So he gets out, Ben. Now, I guess I should say, so far, I have not finished the book yet. I finished this part, obviously. I have not finished the book. And so far, it's one of those weird books where like I can get why people like it. I think that it's very well written. I think it's got some good ideas, but like I just do not care about it. So that's where I'm coming from. Maybe I'm weird. I totally get why it's been praised and got its own like I guess it was a TV series, right?
Yeah, I don't think the TV series was a huge success.
Well, I can totally understand why you'd want to adapt this. And I'm like, it's a solidly written book. I don't care. Nothing has clicked with me. Maybe that'll change. But right now I'm just kind of like, eh.
The structure of the book is such that I'd say it's about 50% plot, 50% world building. But the world building is kind of like dreamlike and ethereal, and that's something that permeates all of Neil Gaiman stuff. You've probably guessed. An idea he's very interested in. I mentioned this in Sandman, and it's also there in Sandman is the idea that belief creates reality, and essentially by worshiping gods, by conceptualizing gods, we create them.
Yes, but worship can also just be like attention almost. I don't think people worship a television, but
Yeah. So the plot, I'll put it this way: the plot is a conflict between the old and the new, between the old gods of
Pepsi and Coke.
the people who it's a conflict between the old gods of the people who first came to America and the quote unquote new gods of the things people worship these days. And the things people worship these days are television, the internet.
Pre 9/11 world, I don't think people are worshiping the internet. It went real slow and it made a lot of weird noises.
Did I have broadband for 9/11? I think I did.
I had a friend who did, but pretty much all my other friends were on dial up for a little
I had
longer.
broadband. I was playing Team Fortress Classic
Oh my god.
on broadband. Yep.
Wow. Look at you.
I know.
I had a GameCube.
I also had a GameCube.
And that was my primary source of entertainment.
But yeah, that's an idea he's interested in. That's an idea I like. And the idea with American Gods essentially is that the American version of the old world gods is a little different. People come over here, they bring their gods with them, but there's something uniquely American about them.
Yeah. They eat cheeseburgers. They don't care about other countries, least of all Europe.
which isn't a country.
They fight. It's a country to me, man. It's one of the not America countries, and they fire their guns off in the air, and they love freedom. That's what it's all about. Freedom.
I would say that Neil Gaiman is exceedingly kind to America.
Yeah, because we're the best. Pre 9/11 world, we could do no wrong.
I think we had this discussion with Paradox Bound, didn't we? When was the American dream at its height? Don't say 1950.
Yeah, I would say just after 1990, when the Soviet Union fell, and also I was born, and then right around 9/11, it all started to decline.
So you're pretty
So
much charting like the rise and fall of grunge music.
So in order to make America great again, we need to get Bill Clinton back into the White House.
No, we don't. That's not what this episode's about. That's distinctly not what this episode's about.
Oh my god. Did you know he was the first baby boomer president? That's fucking weird. Anyway,
take the saxophone, man.
Yeah, so anyway, what were you going to say about how great America was and how Neil Gaiman gets it totally right in cutting us a lot of slack because of how great we are and everything?
I kind of wondered how you felt about that. So he focuses a lot on, I think I told you American Gods is kind of a road trip story. It's set in America, obviously. And they take the classic American road trip. They're driving all across the country. And they see a lot of the sights, they meet a lot of the people, and Neil Gaiman has clearly spent a lot of time in America. I know he lived here for quite some time, and he's clearly traveled it pretty well. A lot of this feels real. I think he went to the places he's writing about for sure. But there is kind of like it's weird to see this because like you don't often, well, I guess as an American, you don't often see other people writing Americans, but it still kind of feels like an outsider's perspective on America. I don't know if you got that.
I don't think so, no. But it sounds like an outsider's perspective on America, very favorable. 10 out of 10, would America again.
I think that's kind of the problem. I think that's why I say it's an outsider's perspective, is it doesn't...
Hey, he goes to America's heartland, and I assume to some sort of big city, but also to America's heartland.
Well, he goes to Chicago.
Yeah, there you go. And then he travels down by the Mississippi. That's America's heart river. And he goes to...
He does spend a lot of time in the real America.
Yeah, the real America. Where us honest, hardworking folk just live and work. And America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, America. So we'll get into that a little bit more as we go through. So Shadow gets his compassionate release, which is a thing. They do still do that, even in the post 9/11 world. And he has a plane ticket to go to his... He thought he was going home, but now he's going to a funeral.
Well, I mean, he's still going home. It's just, you're going home to your dead wife.
Yeah.
But hey, he's still got a job at least, right?
Yeah, he's still got a job.
He's still got a job at the mussel farm with his friend Robbie. It's going to be great, Ben.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Though weirdly, Robbie didn't answer his phone.
Well, he's on a plane, and it's a pre-9/11 world. Cell phones were notoriously terrible. They weren't even flip phones at that point. So,
and the last thing Laura said before they hung up was that she was going to go out with Robbie to plan Shadow's surprise party.
Yeah.
And now Robbie isn't answering his phone.
Yeah. I don't
Shadow's
see what's wrong with that.
Shadow's too grief-stricken to put those elements together, but
he'll see Robbie when he gets off the tarmac, and he'll figure out what's going on.
He'll ask him what happened to Laura.
So he's on the plane, and he goes to a seat, but that seat's occupied, and he's like, "Oh, that's weird. It's a pre-9/11 world. I guess we just don't care about that." And that's what he says out loud. Very prophetic. And the flight attendant is like, sir, it's a pre 9/11 world. We're just going to put you anywhere. So here's an empty seat. You get a first class seat. That's pretty nice. You want a drink? We serve drinks here. And
They serve drinks on every plane.
yeah, but this is the special drinks that first class gets. It's a little fancier and a little tastier. The
I wouldn't
secret
know.
is classism, okay? I actually did fly first class last month because the upgrade price was like $90, and my wife was
Oh,
like,
hell
"Ooh,
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
fuck yeah, that's a
No.
steal, hell yeah." I mean, it was only like a 2-hour flight, so it wasn't like
That sucks. Yeah, like the 5-hour flight, that's when you need it.
yeah, yeah.
That's when you're like, God, if I could just have 2 more inches of leg room.
Yeah, it was awesome. And an elderly lady, they went through and they're like, "Do you want water or champagne?" And obviously, I'm like, "Oh, I'll take the little bubbly." And this older lady was like, "Oh, I want the bubbly one," not realizing that like that's not sparkling water, that's champagne. So
I'm not much of a drinker, but like I have this bizarre need to die sober. Like in my mind, if I'm on an airplane, there's a chance the airplane will crash.
especially if you're on a Boeing, and we were.
And I want to feel fully in charge of my faculties when I die. And I don't know why. Because you would think, like, logically, it would be the opposite, right? But I think the experience of dying would be made worse for me if I were drunk.
Hmm.
I mean, you only get to try it once.
I, on the other
So
hand, went with champagne. So
I'd go with water. I'd go with a coffee. Truth be told, I want to be alert. I want to feel every bone break.
I'm. Jesus Christ.
I started therapy again. They asked me what one of my therapy goals was. And one of my therapy goals is I want to reduce my anxiety when I travel. I have not yet told my therapist about um, the bone thing, but I suspect we're going to have more to talk about after that. So, yeah, he gets on the plane.
He gets himself a beer, and sitting next to him is a guy who who Ben he introduced himself as Wednesday and offers Shadow a job, and Shadow's like, "No, I already have a job," and Ben is like, "Let me know when you know who Wednesday is." And I immediately knew when they said that he had, I think they said he had a red beard, or maybe it was just a beard, and I was like,
He has a graying beard that still
there you
had a
go.
little bit of red in it.
There you go. I was like, okay, all right, he's Norse, probably not Thor. Sounds like an Odin move. Immediately spotted the Odin. And then I confirmed when he has a glass eye.
Yes. I wanted to test you because I've been training you. I don't know if you realized it.
To recognize when Odin
To
comes.
recognize when Odin is there. Because that's a thing that always happens in Norse stories. Somebody always finds this mysterious old man who only has one eye, and they take something from him or they give something to him, and you don't want to get mixed up with him. It's Odin. He's there to harvest your soul. He's probably not going to harvest our souls because, we're doughy and old. But you never know.
I'm as fit as Joe Biden. How dare you, sir?
Oh God, I hope I'm not as fit as Joe Biden. I did just have pneumonia. So
anyway,
it's Odin, and if you don't know, it's Sunday, Moon Day, Tears Day, Odin's Day, Wotan's Day, Thor's Day, Freud's Day, and then I don't know what Saturday is. Saturn's Day? That'd be weird. Yeah, four of the days are named after Norse gods: Tyr, Odin, Thor, Frey, or Freya. I'm not sure. They're pronounced a little differently in Old English. It's Tuis, Wotan, Thor, I think is just Thor. That's easy. And Freya. But yeah, so he's Mr. Wednesday.
Yeah.
And he's got a job for Shadow. Shadow's going to drive him where he needs to go. He's going to punch who he needs punched. And he might get mixed up in crazy schemes. And Shadow's like, nope, screw you. I don't like you. Shadow, he knows.
And he already
He's
has a
like,
job, Ben. I mean,
he's already got a job.
yeah.
And then Odin's like, you don't, though. You really don't. And Shadow's like, you don't know me, old man. You don't know me. And at this point, I think we're good to mention Shadow had a friend in prison. And his friend's name was Low Dash Key Liesmith, spelled Lyesmith. His name is Loki Liesmith. And I will tell you, the first time I read this, I made it all the way to the end before I realized it.
It took me quite a while to put that together, more than I would care to admit.
Yeah, because the way he sets it up is, if you're reading it, it doesn't look like Loki Liesmith. And then you forget about that character for a long time after you're getting the more important information about gods and new gods and all this stuff. And then way at the end, you're like, oh my God, that was Loki. So yeah, I got to imagine in the audiobook, that doesn't work even a little. But it was a pre 9/11 world. They didn't have Audible.
Yeah.
So the only people who listened to the audiobook bought it on CD.
Sounds like something my mom would do.
Yeah. And it was only moms. That's the only people who knew right up front, didn't have to feel like idiots, that the guy named Loki Liesmith was Loki, the smith of all lies.
All right.
So Shadow gets to his hometown. First Shadow...
He gets a car, and he makes sure that no one else gets off on the tarmac with him.
Yeah, he gets a car, and he starts driving towards his hometown, pulls over at a bar to get something to eat. Once you know it, there's Wednesday.
How did he make
Wednesday's
it here, Ben?
I don't know, but
He's Odin. He's Odin'd his way out.
Yep. He's got Hugin and Munin telling him where everything is. So he gets there and they have a drink, and then this redheaded guy in a biker vest comes up. He's a leprechaun. He can pull coins out of the air. Shadow likes to do coin tricks, by the way.
That's very important. I don't know why, but it comes up a lot.
It does become relevant by the end.
Okay.
It's just, I would say the payoff is perhaps not worth the descriptions of coin tricks that you can't really visually imagine.
I did a front palm it, and then I switched it to the other hand, and it looked like it was my current hand, and then I did a reverse palm, and then I showed it to them, and they were impressed, but they knew it was in the other hand because they were following me because they were gods.
But this guy, he does coin tricks I can't understand. He seems to be pulling coins directly out of thin air. And he does, because he's a leprechaun. He and Shadow...
You'd think
Shadow
he'd be
gets
pulling out them Lucky Charms, though. Those things are magically delicious.
That's racist. Cancel.
Cancel. Damn it. Not again.
No, not again. So he pulls the gold coins out. Odin gets Shadow to drink 3 glasses of mead, which is important. Kind of. Neil Gaiman. I mean, this is Jackson Crawford's complaint about Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman likes to make up a lot of shit and call it Norse mythology, which the stuff he makes up is good, but it also, Jackson Crawford's point is, it also obscures the actual story. But he drinks the mead 3 times, which basically means he's accepted Odin's job, and he gets into a fist fight with the leprechaun. And in the fist fight with the leprechaun, it's an epic fist fight. They both get very drunk and they fight. And Shadow wins. And in exchange, the leprechaun teaches him how to pull gold coins out of the air. and the leprechaun gives him a gold coin for winning a fight.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. He gives him a gold coin.
Oh, I kept it in mind.
Then Shadow gets to his hometown, finds out, where his wife's viewing is.
Well, he also found out that Robbie is dead. There is a news article that Odin showed him, and they drank mead. So he accepted Odin's contract.
Yeah, that's right. That's why he accepted Odin's contract. So he gets in there. I was trying to save the impact.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Robbie's dead? This isn't a book about Shadow going back to the muscle farm and hanging out with his friend Robbie.
And his loyal wife.
Yeah, that one. That was a little...
So he goes to the viewing, and Robbie's wife is also there. And Laura, he's looking at Laura in the casket, and she's wearing a blue suit, and he does a very good description of seeing a dead person, how it's like it just doesn't really look like them anymore, but it clearly is them, and it's very complicated emotionally.
My grandma looked a lot better, by the way.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, what?
Your grandmother has been so besmirched on this podcast.
Well, this time I'm talking about my other grandmother.
How is anyone going to know that? And not better.
My granddad looked like he lost a lot of weight. Very slim in his final...
He lost significant blood weight.
Anyway, she spits on the casket.
So anyway, the scene... She spits not on the casket, she spits on Laura's face.
Yeah.
And then she walks out, and Shadow follows her, and he's like, what the fuck was that about? And she says, your wife died with my husband's cock in her mouth. And you're like, shit.
Well.
Oof.
Yeah.
So what had happened was they were in a car. We'll find this out later, but I'm going to tell you now because I know you're curious. They were in a car together. They'd been having an affair. And they'd been having an affair basically the whole time Shadow was in prison. And she told him, we got to end the affair. Shadow's coming back. I'm going to be loyal to him. And then she's like, but I'm gonna give you a send off. I'm gonna give you a quick blow jobber in this dense traffic. And she does that rapidly, like a ninja. She did, but very un-ninja like. She forgot she was not aware of her surroundings. That's the first mistake.
Yeah. That's why Batman had to learn that one.
Yeah, exactly. She smacked the gear shift with her elbow, and it was a gear shift. It was a manual transmission in a pre-9/11 world.
Oh my God.
And that caused the gear to change, even though the clutch wasn't in. And something happened.
Understand that because I don't think you can easily change gears when you're going down the highway.
Well, you don't know how she performs oral.
Okay. She uses a lot of shoulder strain.
It's a lot of like the lats. You really got to engage the lats. I'm literally sitting here like in the webcam, like doing the motion. I'm thinking. So she knocks the gear shift or whatever. The car careens, hits a truck, flips 70 million times. People always yell at me when I get the number of stuff wrong. I don't know how many times she flipped, but the point is she's dead. So the car, it's still spinning.
It's still spinning. Some might say it's still in motion to this very day.
And they both died. And I gotta say, like...
How did they manage to find her face in his crotch when they need firemen to jaws of life them out of there, I think?
I had a similar question, but my mind immediately went to another note.
Oh, God.
Which was, did the police tell the widow Muscle Farm?
That is the other... That's a good question. Like, you think they would just leave that out? Like, let's let this one go to their graves.
Yeah. That's what I wondered. I wondered how the widow Muscle Farm found out. And I guess the cops just said, yeah, he was getting blown. He was getting blown when he died. The telltale signs were there.
I'm Detective Sam Smith, and I did the
We,
investigation here myself.
we actually we suspected that might have been the case, so we called in CSI, and they did match the lipstick on what remained of her face to the lipstick on what remained of his wang, and it was a match. It was Roadhead. There was really no reason to do the investigation other than to make sure you knew that.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh. Yeah, we really just wanted you to know that in his final moments, he was thinking of another woman.
well, it's not so much about you. You're kind of an intermediary in this. The person who really needs to know is Shadow.
Yeah, there
Because
you
he
go.
needs to be properly destroyed so he can be built back up over the course of a novel.
Perfect.
And so Shadow goes to the funeral, and he's having very conflicted feelings about Laura, but he buries her with the gold coin. He places it on the casket, and they do the ritual where you get to throw in some dirt, and he does that. And then he goes to find Wednesday, and he's walking away from the funeral. And wouldn't you know it, the widow Muscle Farm pulls up behind him. She says a bunch of really mean stuff to him, and then she asks him, "Hey, Shadow, how was prison?" And he's like, "Well, it takes one to know it." Shit. I mean, you'd fit in well there. And she drives off properly burned.
Got him.
Got him.
Yeah. I thought that
I don't
was
think that was
weird.
I don't think that was as strong a line as Neil Gaiman thought it was. But I did notice on a second reading, I was like,
Hey, I had the excuse of, my wife had an affair and cheated on me when I was in prison. What's your excuse? You were here the whole time.
oof, that's way better.
Oh.
Oh shit, Nate. Wow. Damn. But Shadow couldn't do that. It would make him way too interesting.
Yeah. He is kind of a boring sack of crap.
So
Here we go.
yeah, he is kind of a boring sack of crap. Well, let me go a little further. Okay, so Shadow, he's still walking down the same road. It's a rough night for Shadow.
Yeah. It's about to get better, though, right? That's what happens.
He gets
it's all looking
clocked
up
in the back of the head and thrown into a limo where a kid smoking cigarettes made of rolled up dried toad skin.
Yeah. That's what all
I
the kids
forgot
are doing
about
these
that.
days.
They're all doing toad.
Well, they were doing that in pre 9/11 world. That's why Family Guy.
That was a
in
pre
there.
9/11 episode
Yeah.
of Family Guy. Yeah. Wow.
'Cause when you do
Tell me about it,
toad,
stud.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you can kiss your life goodbye.
Will make your mama cry.
Yeah, when you use Toad, it'll mess you up. It'll make your mama cry. That's no lie. You'll choke on your tongue and die.
I could do the whole Toad song. Yeah. Wow. Damn. So he's in the car with this mysterious stranger, and he's like, "You tell Wednesday we're fucking on to him. You tell him he doesn't want to fuck with me. You don't want to fuck with me, Shadow." And Shadow says something snarky. He gets punched in the stomach.
he says, "Okay, I won't. Just drop me off at the hotel," and he ggets punched.
He's like, "You see that comment about the hotel? That was fucking with me. Now we're gonna drop him off at the hotel, okay?" And
yeah, that is how it goes. Yeah.
and they drop him off at the hotel, and Wednesday has already checked him in, and he goes and he gets a bath, and he's enjoying himself. Pause. No, not pause. Keep going. Want to go just a little further before I talk about my thoughts on Shadow. So he gets out of the bath. I think it's dark in the room. Maybe he gets a pizza or something. And
both
sitting in the room, unmistakably, is Laura in the same clothes she was buried in. And she's like, "Come here, Shadow." And he's like, "Nah, we have a lot to talk about." She's like, "About me being dead?" And he's like, Yeah, I wasn't actually thinking about that.
The nature of which you died, actually.
Thinking about the way you died. And she's like, oh, that. And then she tells him the whole story of the affair, totally deadpan. And she tells him a lot of details. And he's like, I didn't need to hear that. And she's like, sorry, it's really hard to gauge when you're dead what will upset people. By the way, thank you for the gift, Shadow. And she holds up the gold coin. And then she says a bunch of stuff about how, like, there's a storm coming. Everybody says there's a storm coming, by the way. Everybody who meets him says there's a storm coming.
There is a storm coming.
There's a storm coming. You're in trouble. You're going to need somebody to look after you. She calls him Puppy. That's a pet name they had. It's really creepy.
It is very weird. Yeah.
Maybe that's a red flag.
There you go. We should have known all along, Ben. You have to read into everything. That's how you spot them.
Yeah. They make out.
Yeah.
She tastes like she tries to smoke a cigarette. It doesn't really work. So she tastes like ash and formaldehyde and decomposing flesh. And then she leaves and she walks out. And he mentions how she looks really dead under the fluorescent lights, but then so does everybody, which I agree. That was a neat little detail I liked. And I knew exactly what he meant. I know those fluorescent lights. I used to work at Sears. And they're right. It's terrible. No human should be subjected to that. A lot of Motel 6, Motel 8 type stuff, like roadside motels in this. Never stayed in one.
Sounds awful.
Never will. Not as long as I have money.
Yeah.
You donate to our Patreon. Keep me out of that motel. Holiday Inn Express for this gentleman.
Hey,
I'm not joking. I stay in one every single time. I have so many points.
You know what you're getting. Yeah.
I have so many points. It would be irresponsible not to. It would be financially irresponsible at this point in my life not to stay at Holiday Inn Express everywhere I go. A continental breakfast, Nate.
Yeah, I stay at hotels with full breakfasts.
Well, I'm not made of money like you, okay?
Yeah, I need some more than some eggs and a bowl of cereal to keep me going.
I usually do like the oatmeal, some fruit, and then like whatever the breakfast meat is. But yeah, so he knocks on Wednesday's door, and Wednesday's got a lady in there. And that is something Odin would do. He also thinks he feels a ghost raven fly through him. I mean, so that was kind of on the nose. And Wednesday, he tells Wednesday, he's like, I think my dead wife was just in my room. Wednesday's like, ghost? He's like, no, she was like fully animate. And he's like, that happens sometimes. What'd she want? He's like, I don't know. Like, okay, well, keep me posted on that. But not tonight. Don't knock. Go away.
Bye.
Bye. And he goes back in.
And then they go to the country kitchen.
Which for our non-American listeners, the country kitchen is a buffet.
Used to be a buffet.
Is it done?
I'm pretty sure they have closed.
Is Golden Corral still going?
I think Golden Corral is the only buffet that is still going strong.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane. I mean, they're terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was literally like, you want to talk about, worshiping false gods, man. That was a temple to obesity.
There you go.
It was quantity over quality. The country kitchen buffet god comes to life. Or the obesity god.
There you go. The obesity god. And the church is the country kitchen and Golden Corral.
And the priest is that kid making $7.50 an hour. Praying you eat yourself to death. So yeah, they do that. So Shadow. This is my problem with Shadow. And this is a problem I had the first time I read the book. I don't like Shadow as a character. And I always thought he was boring. I always thought he was impossibly passive, and I didn't really like how just wherever he goes, everybody likes him because he's so quiet and polite and passive. He has very little edge to him, except when it would be like cool for him to do something, in which case he does it, and it doesn't really make sense why he does it. And that's when I started thinking, like, as we go through the book, I will say women are women are certainly objectified in this book.
What?
There's definitely a lot of depictions of women that I don't think this is in light of the allegations. I think this is in light of me being an older person reading this book. The depictions of women are, I would think, a little far from reality, at least in my experience. The sheer willingness of every reasonably attractive female character to walk around scantily clad and or have sex with either Shadow or Wednesday is unbelievable. There are many of the goddesses are also like overtly sexualized. It's and the same does not super apply to the men. He does sexualize men a little bit as
But we
well.
need more of Odin's schlong. Yeah?
There's
He needs to be waving that thing around.
there's a scene in particular that's coming up that we'll talk about, but what really started to get to me was the way Shadow portrays himself is kind of the way Gaiman portrays himself. And I even think back to like Dream and Sandman. Dream is also kind of like this, where they're just these sad boys. They're just sad, tragic boys who have bad luck with women, and maybe they can admit it's their fault, maybe they can't, but the point is they're sad and they're tragic.
Yeah.
And they want you to feel bad for them.
And I do, Ben. No, I don't. I don't give a shit about Shadow. I can't, Ben.
I
don't.
think that's the thing. Like, you could tell Shadow that a lot of this is his own fault, and he would be like, yeah, I know, I should do better next time. And it's like, yeah, but you're not really taking responsibility for it. You're just wallowing in it. And that's kind of, that was one thing that bothered me, especially when you listen to that 4-hour podcast. They have like, I didn't mention this, but one of the things they have in that podcast is the woman making I would say the bulk of the allegation. She gives her phone to the podcasters, and she has a bunch of exchanges with Neil Gaiman. And to the credit of the podcast, many of these exchanges paint Neil Gaiman in a favorable light. But there's also like a lot of weird voicemails and a lot of talks of like depression and how sad they both are, and like it's very strange for a 60-year-old man to be talking the way he's talking to a 21-year-old girl. I'm sorry, it's just weird. Like, it reminds me of Shadow and Dream. It reminds me of this, like, I'm so sad too.
Oh, is Dream also that way?
Dream is very mopey. Now Dream, I will say, the writing portrays Dream as his own worst enemy. Everything that goes wrong for Dream with his relationships is like mostly on Dream. And he's kind of a pompous asshole. And the larger arc of Sandman is Dream like dealing with it and becoming less of a pompous asshole. Shadow kind of doesn't have much of an arc to me. Like they say, I've mentioned this before somewhere on the podcast, but like Back to the Future, the movie, that screenplay is often used as an example of being an exception to the rule. Usually you want to have your protagonist have an arc, something changes, they're a different person than they were before. In the beginning of Back to the Future, Marty McFly is cool as a cucumber, and at the end of Back to the Future, he's cool as a cucumber. The only thing he learns is not to respond suicidally when somebody calls him a chicken.
Yeah.
And that's kind of Shadow here. Shadow is a wistful, longing, sad boy. And by the end, he's still kind of a wistful, longing, sad boy. And I do see a lot of Neil Gaiman in Shadow now because in that podcast, he really does come off as like one of these wistful, longing, sad boys who believes his own tragic bullshit. But the fact of the matter is, Shadow doesn't have to work for Wednesday. He doesn't have to do any of this. He doesn't have to like pine for Laura. He didn't have to uh, do the thing that got him in prison. He just bounced from thing to thing, and it's his passivity is his problem, and that is not addressed in his arc, and that bothers me because I think there is some beauty the author sees in Shadow's like tragedy. That bothered me. But where do they go after the country kitchen buffet?
They go to Chicago, Ben. They gotta get some gods on their side. One is Chernobog, and then there's Miss
Go on.
Zoria yeah.
I want you to say each and every one
There's
of their names.
let me see. Where's the Beelabog? He's not around anymore though.
No, that's not the one I want you to say.
Let's see.
I want you say all three, and then I'll try to say all three. I'll send them to you.
Zoria et Utrenya. How am I doing so far? Great. And then let me see. Zoria Polanchnia.
So I would say Zoria Vechernaya, Zoria Utranyaya, and Zoria Polunochnaya.
They're fortune tellers, Ben.
Okay.
So the important thing here is that Shadow wins a high-stakes game of checkers against Chernobog, but also loses a high-stakes game of checkers. And Chernobog, he's going to take his hammer, his big sledgehammer, and just pound Shadow's brains out at the end of all this. But because he also lost, he has to join Odin's wacky quest. And then the fortune teller sisters, the one that's only up at night, gives him the moon, which is not as good as the sun, which is the gold coin. It's just a shitty silver coin for losers. Silver is a fancy word for loser. If you go and get Olympic silver, just quit. You're done.
You know, the Olympics are going on right now.
I know they are.
There's
There's only one winner.
A lot of silver medalist Olympians that could probably just crush your head.
Yeah. Yeah. But guess what? They're still losers, Ben.
I'm sure they care. So after that, very depressing.
Borscht.
Yeah, after that very depressing scene of terrible food and rundown apartments, the old gods have fallen on some hard times. Wednesday decides they're going to need some cash.
So he robs a bank, and just like the amazing literary classic Extrasensual Perception by Chad Dingleton, they rob a bank, and Shadow's like, most people just rob the ATM, Ben. But Odin has another way where he because it's a pre 9/11 world, right? So he could just put some tape over the slot for the deposits on the weekend, which I don't even know what the fuck that is, and he stands there. It's an out of order sign, and also Shadow thinks the weather into existence, and he just takes everyone's money, and that's that.
It is a true. I would like to go into the scheme, but in the interests of time, I think I won't. It is a true like Old Norse wacky Odin scam that's very needlessly complicated. It involves multiple signs, a costume change, several hours at Kinko's,
Business
a
cards.
payphone, business cards, and multiple transactions at multiple banks. The night deposit thing is basically businesses that take cash will make deposits, and over the weekend when the bank's not open, they could drop them in a slot with a deposit slip, and then they would, whenever the bank opened, they take care of it. It is interesting to me that the ATM was out of order, and so for some reason the deposit box was out of order. I was to understand the deposit box was literally just a
So
slot that,
slot
like,
into the building.
yeah, but that was out of order. That was broken.
Yeah, that slot is broken, Ben.
It's gravity powered, I think.
Well, you can't open it. It's sealed shut.
Yeah, but they get out of there. So, what did you think of now that you're done with only part one, right?
Yeah.
What do you think of Shadow thinking the weather? Where do you think that's going?
I don't know. I don't know, and I'm struggling to care.
Why do you
I
think Shadow was
he
chosen by
believes
Wednesday?
he believes in the weather, Ben. He believes maybe Shadow is also a god or like a part god,
Okay.
and Wednesday was like recruiting him, and he doesn't even know, Ben. He doesn't even know.
So they drive on to a roadside attraction, which
Yeah.
Neil Gaiman has an interesting idea about this and then doesn't really explain it. And that is another problem with American Gods, is there's a lot of interesting ideas that I don't consistently, which is okay in this kind of dreamlike fantasy. I think it works better in Sandman, where like they literally are in a realm of dreams most of the time. But they go to a roadside attraction. It is a real roadside attraction, I believe. It's like the House on the Rock. This is your area of the country, not mine. And it's this big house that has a lot of.
My home state has a big ball of yarn or twine. I don't remember which.
Is that what Unsighted was talking about?
I don't know.
So there was an episode of Unsighted, and they were talking about Taylor Swift,
Yeah.
and they made an offhand comment about a road trip from like Pennsylvania or from like basically like Pennsylvania or New York down to Florida, and they talked about stopping on the way to see the world's largest ball of string as like an example of like an American road trip. And then they were very sure to mention that they've never been on an American road trip like that.
Okay.
And I was like, I've driven that, and I don't think I think this is interesting because as an American, the roadside attraction thing, I think that's more a thing like out west.
Yeah.
I don't see a ton
The
of it where I
land of
am.
opportunity.
I was going to say the land of big empty roads.
The land of, that's what I said, Ben. I think we're talking about the same thing.
There's an opportunity to put a roadside attraction there because nobody owns it. Yeah, no, because I have seen that in like when I was driving around California a little. It's like there was a lot of places where you could just like, oh, it's desert, it's desert, it's desert. Hey, there's a thing.
Yeah. The
Uh,
largest almond, walnut, what was it?
what?
There's
We do
a
not have this on the
pistachio.
East.
It was a pistachio. The world's largest pistachio.
We don't have a lot of this on the East Coast.
Yeah, because you don't have opportunity out there.
No, it's pretty much all taken. I feel like, yeah, somebody would probably buy that and put something real on it.
We've got all this opportunity out here. So much opportunity.
So yeah, they go to this place of power, and there's a carousel there with a bunch of magical beasts. They hop on the carousel. The magical beasts become real, and they enter the realm of dreams. They go to Odin's hall.
Ah.
It's Odin's hall, and he's riding his wolf, Gary and Freki, and Shadow's riding some kind of monster, and um, Anansi is there, and I don't really know much about that. I didn't read Anansi Boys. I hope I'm saying that right. I don't have it in front of me. I
I
believe he is
I don't know. You sound like you said a Nazi. Like,
Anansi.
okay,
We're talking about a Caribbean thing, I
yeah,
think.
that all happened.
Anansi, yeah. And so um he
And they're
he's
like,
there, and they meet up with all the gods, and there's a whole big meeting of the gods, and basically this is where Odin is for sure Odin now. You know who he is, and Shadow's like, what? Magic is real? You guys, you're gods?
"You're a teacher, part time."
And I'm like, yeah. So Shadow's like, I mean, he's pushing 150 pages in now. Shadow's just touching the surface of beginning to get it. And he's like, so Odin's plan, it's war, guys. We're gonna make war on the new gods. So the thing is, you know how in this world people get a bunch of power
Yeah.
from, or entities get a bunch of power
Yep.
from being worshipped.
Okay. I'll take your
Well,
word. Most people get
now,
power from, their parents giving them a shitload of money, and then they use that power to buy politicians. And
well,
but
the
yeah,
gods
no,
can't do
no,
that.
okay.
They can't do that. They're bootstraps. Okay, they're the real
Why
there.
don't they do that?
There's probably a god of money, and he's probably doing fine. There is a point where they talk about Jesus, and they're like, "God, I wish I had his numbers." And
And Jesus never shows up.
no, he's busy. He's got stuff to do. And this is the other thing I don't get about Odin. You know, like if Odin, this is something that always kind of bugged me about American gods, and it kind of bugged me in Sandman too. Why don't the gods make any effort at attracting worship? Make deals,
Because
do favors for
you know
people.
how
Tell
hard
them,
that is? That involves working. Okay.
like, if you hang somebody, if you're Odin, you know, like, why don't you tell people, like, hey, if you hang somebody and sacrifice him to me, I'll do stuff for you. Like, he's just like, he's sitting like, you got to market yourself, man. And this economy, you can't just rely on your publisher to do it for you. Yeah, get out there on social media. You
It's
gotta
a
get out
pre
there on your
9/11
socials.
world, okay.
You got Instagram, TikTok. Get a TikTok. It was a pre 9/11 world.
Yeah, they
Get
couldn't internet very well, you know.
get them. Do they have MySpace?
No, that was in the
No.
2000s.
Get a Yahoo Messenger. Get an email
Go get a
address.
GeoCities account.
Get a GeoCities
There
page.
you go. For anyone who is listening this far in and doesn't know what a GeoCities account is, you're better off. You just don't bother.
Angel Fire.
Angel,
There's
oh
got to
my
be a
God.
million little goth kids on Angel Fire looking for stuff about Odin.
What you need is a web page that loads a really cool cursor that has like an animated guy or something, and
I did that. Like, I did that on websites. A background music, like a MIDI
Yes,
of
I was
some
gonna
stupid
say a
anime
MIDI.
opening.
Yep.
Yeah. My
The
point
problem is Odin sucks.
market yourself.
Yeah,
Market
get yourself
yourself.
a GeoCities, get yourself some shitty MIDI music, and talk about how people need to worship you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's better than literally nothing. So Odin, but that's a plan. You know, like we could try to attract worshipers. We could hold a raffle. We could put out an LP like Odin Raps. We could do, like, they could brainstorm something like that. But no, the other option is we just kill them. What if we just took our big knives, our various superpowers, and we just stab television?
Yeah.
Then maybe we can be television.
I mean, is that the plan? Because, like, okay, we kill the god of television, but, like, wouldn't another one just come into being then? I don't know,
Yeah,
man.
no, that's the problem. I don't fully understand Odin's plan. I will say it's kind of intended not to make. You're kind of intended to question the logic of it. It's Odin. Nothing is ever like fully as it seems.
He's just trying to get them all killed so he can harvest them for the final battle in Ragnarok.
He's got a plan. It goes a little deeper than that. We'll get into it in another part. Um,
Does
but
it
after this,
involve fucking Loki?
yeah, absolutely, it involves Loki.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Okay.
And why do you? I'm surprised you haven't put something together. I figured this one out pretty early. Oh, and I do want to ask you. So they get fortunes
Yeah.
at the roadside attraction. Did you note what the fortunes were?
Every ending is a new beginning. Your lucky number is none. Your lucky color is dead. Like father, like son. Oh, and he never knew his dad. Is his dad going to be Odin? There's the smile.
Yeah.
God damn it. So he is half god.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
This is going to be like a BioWare thing. Not BioWare. Bioshock, where the main character is a blank fucking slate and it turns out he was created by the villain to enact his evil plan.
There's a scene, I think this might get into part two. There is a scene where Odin is getting with a girl who is probably too young for him, which that was an uncomfortable read. Especially as Shadow is pointing out, like, she looks like she's 17. What are you
Oh
doing?
my god. Please
I'm
don't
like,
pull a Brian McClellan.
oh no, it's Odin. I mean, it's not painted as a good thing, but like that
Yeah.
was another one where I'm looking back at it like, well,
You can't
I
know
haven't
anyone.
heard of anything illegal in that regard, but like you do like them 40 years younger than you know. So there's that's a scene, and Odin explains. Shadow's like, well, don't you worry about like disease. He's like, I don't get diseases. Don't you worry about pregnancy. He's like, most of the time we shoot blanks, you know. He's like, the gods most of the time, like, they can't reproduce. It's very rare for a god to reproduce.
But not impossible, Dad. I mean Odin.
So Shadow, Odin gets the gods to at least agree to let him buy them dinner, and they drive to a restaurant. And Shadow gets out of the car, and he gets brained again. And this time he winds
Here
up in
come the men in black.
he winds up in an undisclosed location where he is being interrogated by Mr. Wood and Mr. Stone. I
Hey,
don't remember
I'm
what that means.
I'm the good cop. You want a Snickers bar? Here's a Snickers bar. That's a good boy. Do you want something to drink? I love you. And I'm the bad cop. Bam! Tell us what we want, and I'll stop punching you, but I'm gonna punch again! Yeah, that's right. Yeah, take one of these! Alright. Now I'm done kicking your ass. Tell us what we want to know!
Shadow doesn't talk because Shadow may be many things, but he's no narc. And I don't even know what he would tell them in the first
Yeah,
place.
well, he does truthfully say, like, I've only been working with him for like 3 days. And the bad cop is like, no, you weren't! Bam! Take that right to the kidneys.
And then they let him cool his heels for a while. And then the door opens again, and it's Laura, and she's covered in blood. And she's like, don't worry, Shadow. I came to save you. Shadow walks out into an absolute massacre. Laura has single-handedly killed half a dozen federal agents or some kind
And
of
also
agents.
killed Shadow's best friend and wife.
She is his wife.
Yeah, I know.
He's like, oh my God, did you kill all of these people? And she's like, yep. How did you do that? Not important. It's a little important. I'm not going to explain it. Take
Violent.
these hand warmers. Take this case of Snickers these guys had for some reason.
That's what you give to let people know they're doing a good job.
and walk south.
Follow the Mississippi, I guess.
Follow the golden Mississippi.
Freedom.
And then Shadow runs into one of Odin's ravens, who's like, "You gotta go to Cairo," which he pronounces Cairo. He's like, "Well, you mean like Cairo, Egypt?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, how the hell am I supposed to do that?" And he's like, "You go south." Well, it turns out in let's see where it is, Illinois.
Oh, okay.
So it's Cairo, Illinois. And there's a million different stories for why it's called Cairo, and I assume that's a real thing Neil Gaiman encountered when he went to this place. And Shadow eventually figures that out. He drives down. He picks up a hitchhiker. That made me fucking nervous. She's young, but
Does she
nothing
ever come up
happened.
again?
I think so.
Okay.
And she comes up at least once. She gets interviewed by the Men in Black. And then he drops her where she's going. It was a pre 9/11 world. You could hitchhike.
Yeah.
And then he winds up in Cairo, Egypt. Obviously, there are some Egyptian gods in Cairo, Egypt.
Illinois.
Cairo, Egypt, Illinois.
Okay.
They call that whole area Egypt. I think there's a Thebes as well.
Yeah.
So he winds up there. There's some Egyptian gods there. They run a funeral parlor. It's Mr. Ibis and Mr. Jackal. Horus is a hawk somewhere. And then there's a sexy cat.
Meow. That's right.
Oh. Like it was bad and then it got way worse. Oh boy. Nothing would end a moment faster, I think, than quoting the Pokemon dub to me.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Well.
He winds up hanging out with them. They were instructed by Odin to take care of him. He works with them as a funeralman for a while.
Funeralman.
He has sex with the cat. The cat can turn into a lady, a sexy lady that has the tongue of a cat.
Just
And
feels
might
like sandpaper.
Might also be covered in fur. It might be a furry thing. I don't know, but it's long. Like there's a long sequence of him having like weird dream sex with this cat, and then it eventually mercifully ends in like okay, so this is one of the things I'm talking about. This is one of the sex scenes. There's a lot of things that are said during the sexual encounter by the Catwoman that I don't think a person would say. At least not in my experience. I think it's the kind of thing they would say to you if you were paying them to say it. It doesn't strike me as like romantic. It strikes me as like porn. That's definitely something I noticed more in the wake of the scandal. Also, Zoria Polunochnya's boobles are described in amazing detail. She is coincidentally the only of the three sisters that is reasonably young and attractive. And there was really no reason for that. Like the sexy cat thing, I don't know. Maybe there's a mythological reason he has sex with that cat. I don't know of one. But there's a lot of, and he's clearly like a boob man.
Yeah.
A lot of boob description.
Yeah.
Like more than any other part of anyone else's body.
Yeah.
Odin is missing an eye.
Yeah.
And
But
there's
like
way more emphasis put on Zoria Polunochnya's boobs.
yeah. I don't see what you're getting at, Ben. I think you're the weird one here.
Yeah, maybe it's me. That stuff definitely stood out. Like the detail, the like hentai level details of fluids.
Fluids.
Right? Like that's the thing, right? Like I want to say like I'm a dude, right? Presumably this is the male gaze, right? Like, presumably this is written for me. And even I'm like, you could fade to black. That's fine. Like, I don't need to.
Nah, I need to know.
Do you need to know, like, how, like,
Yes, absolutely. To whatever your next question is. 100%.
she literally, with her.
Yes. Yes, I needed to know that. It was important.
Okay. Well,
It was yep, it was super yeah, Ben. To answer your question. Yes.
and then he meets the leprechaun again. The leprechaun is not looking good. And he's like, "Hey man, I need that gold coin back. I gave you the wrong gold coin. That was like a super gold coin. And I need that back." And he's like, "I don't have it." And he's like, "Well, then I'm dead." And then he dies.
Yeah.
And then they have a wake for him. I'm kind of rushing because, like, this is getting late.
This is getting
And
long, yeah.
yeah,
So he's dead. And
they have a wake. It's funny.
the end. Anyway, see you next
Is that
week.
the end of part 1?
Yeah, this is the final part.
Okay.
Final chapter of part 1. He's dead now. Let's move on.
Okay. Do you have anything you want to say about part 1? Any feelings so far? Any
Again,
reactions?
that is my feeling. I get why people like it. I think it's well written. I just struggled to care.
There is one thing we didn't talk about, and we're probably not going to talk about a lot. There are interspersed throughout the book these quote unquote coming to America chapters.
Yes.
Where it has nothing to do with the story that's happening right now. It's just a one chapter short story on how a particular entity wound up coming to America. It's a story of the people who brought them over and why they brought them over and what they did. And it's like you said, they're good stories. Like, if you were to publish any of those as a short story in a magazine or an anthology, it'd be a really solid entry. Plugged into the middle of the novel, I think they seem really self-indulgent. And that's another thing I keep coming back to. I think the thing I'm getting the most in the wake of these allegations and like looking at Neil Gaiman in this new light is just the ego and the self-indulgence and the self-insert. And none of it's very honest. Like, the America is kind of this like rosy place. And all the controversies and complications of America are kind of played for like yucks. Like, they're not a big deal. It's just people being people. And it's like, maybe I hesitate to like say the America is magic thing. Like,
It is, though. We're number one, at least during this time. Pre 9/11 world. We had just decided that the Supreme Court can decide elections if it wants to. And we're just riding high on that first year of Bush when nothing was wrong and he was just reading books to children in France or whatever.
He gave us all $300.
Yeah. Is that real?
That was yeah, he did. Everybody got a $300 rebate.
Wow. I thought
that's why there's that Futurama episode.
Thing.
No, that's why they made that episode where Nixon gives them all money. Yeah. So yeah, next time we'll try to wrap this up. I don't want to dwell on this too much. I feel kind of yucky about the whole thing, to be perfectly frank.
So you want to try and wrap up just a two-parter? I'm okay with that.
I'd like to try. If it winds up going on super long, I'm okay. We'll do that. Shout out to our patrons, our Yacht Plan tier patrons. John Bierce, actual author of The Mage Iron and the Rack, got a new project coming up. Shout out to Jamie the Gravy Man at the If You Want the Gravy blog. He's reviewing movies, sodas, not books. Can't review books. If you see him reviewing a book, you tell him, no, Mr. Gravy, you can't do that. Spooky Shy, shout out the Y over on TikTok. And last but not least, Isekai Sensei Sama of the That Time I Got Reincarnated in the Same World as an Anime Podcaster podcast.